So Jini Chadaria is, Jini means fine or subtle. Chadaria is, chadar is a sheet. So Jini, I have to kind of sing it to myself to remember all the words. Jini. Yeah. So basically it tells a story of the creation of this chadar, of this fine, subtle cloth. And if he sings it, you'll hear him repeating again and again, Chini, Chadaria. So what is this chadaria? He describes how it's made, and you hear that it's being made inside somebody's body. And he describes the chakras being formed, the sun and the moon, and you realize a body is being created inside of a body. It's being woven. And he says that it took 10 months. The songs say 10 months. I don't know why they say 9. Don't say 9 months. And tok, even the song says, like the sound of the loom, he made that chadaria. And then I'll just tell you one interesting thing about the difference between hearing a classical musician sing this song and hearing a folk musician. It says all the people who, even great sages, rishis and munis, they couldn't keep that chadar clean throughout their lives. The folk singer, Prahlad Tipania, added a verse that I've never heard from a classical singer, and it was, Arjun was supposed to be very great, but that fool, even he couldn't keep that chadaria clean. And at the end, as Purushottam has said, Das Kabir, Jatan se orde.
You need a mic.
Just a minute.
So chadar sur narmoni ओढ़े ओढ़ के मैली कीनी चदरिया दास कबीर जतन से ओढ़े ने ज्यों की त्यों धर दीनी चदरिया.
Somehow he wore it so carefully that it came out just as pure as when it was made.
Suraj?
जी.
We have the instrument live, please. So kept it in Rag Malkons, which is a beautiful rag
चदरिया झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया राम नाम रस भीनी राम नाम रस भीनी राम नाम रस भीनी झीनी रे झीनी.
As I said yesterday, and some of you may not have been there, the idea of Voices of Faith really is to bring together scholars and musicians to help us explore the idea and the philosophies behind different religions and different faiths. And it's not necessarily about practicing it, but it's really about opening our minds, getting us to question some of the ideas that are put forward and have conversations, which is the reason we then have receptions at the end of every day for you all to then mingle, speak with the authors, speak to each other. And of course, a big thank you to Kamini and the Dibanga Foundation for making this possible. I also wanted to just acknowledge, because I went this afternoon to this wonderful space called Riverside Studios that many of you may have been to. It's a place that Teamwork Arts started its international journey 5 years ago. I'm 32, but this was 25 years ago. And Kiran and the Anil Agrawal Family Trust has taken that over, and we hope that that will continue to grow in its stature, and many congratulations for making that happen. Thank you so much. Much of my love for Kabir really has been through the writings of Purushottam Agrawal and the translations of Linda Hess, and the work that we continue to do in Varanasi. We have something called the Mahindra Kabira Festival, which happens every year, which celebrates the idea and philosophy of the poet Kabir, who's later known as Sant Kabir. Really comes from that, and it's that immersive sense that you get when you're in Benares, that Swaransh Mishra and his ancestors in many ways, Rajan and Sajan Mishra, as he said, his father and his uncle are part of a gharana which is steeped in the philosophy of music. Do remember that the ideas of music and dance forms from India is not just the practice. Of course, it takes a million times of practicing something to be able to make it possible, but it's about the understanding of the philosophy. That's how you express the dance or create the music. So you need that kind of study, and that study comes from the kind of work that Purushottam and Linda Hess has done. So thank you both so much for coming from two different parts of the world. Linda's just flown in from the United States, which we will not talk about, and Purushottam has come from India, which we can talk about, but in different ways. But Purushottam, could you tell us how you came to Kabir? Your work has been so, in many ways, steeped with this philosophy. Was Kabir the saint? Was he a poet? Was he a philosopher? Was he even literate?
Well, to begin with, thank you very much, organizers, sponsors, and the wonderful audience. Now, first part of your question, I came to Kabir because of perpetual restlessness, anxiety, curiosity, and anger. And according to faith, innocent faith of my parents, I came to Kabir because in the previous birth I was a sadhu and I could not complete spiritual practice, therefore I had to be born again, and therefore I had the kind of temperament I just described. Well, I enjoyed this as a child. I felt very special because of this faith, and showed my weight around to my friends. But fortunately, by the age of 15 or 16, I came to realize that दिल के खुश रखने को गालिब ये ख्याल अच्छा है. So now I know, and I knew at the age of 16 or 17 that I am given only one life. I don't remember my previous life if there was any. And if I am born again by any chance, I don't want to be. But if I am born again by any chance, I will not be Purushottam Agrawal. So that will not be my life. So I have only this life. So this is first part. I was angry. Those days young people used to be angry. These days young people prefer to be conservative than being angry. But well, so that is how I came to Kabir, because of anxieties, curiosities, anger, restlessness. Academically, I started working on Kabir way back in 1977 as a student of post-graduation, and then research, and my research is not confined to Kabir only. I am interested in his times, I am interested in the intellectual history of that time, and the impact of colonization on Indian society, Indian civilization, and Indian history, and Indian self-perception as such. So my work on Kabir is a part of the process which is very fashionably described these days as decolonization. But if that is decolonization, I have been doing this for so many years now. Now Kabir, what is Kabir? Kabir is everything you described. Kabir is a poet, Kabir is a philosopher, Kabir is recognized not only as a sant but also a kind of divinity. But most importantly and first of all, Kabir is an anguished human soul. And therefore Kabir is such a powerful poet. Because in his words, the anguish, the anxiety, and mind you, his anxiety is not merely so-called spiritual. There is no binary between spiritual and social in Kabir. He is looking for spiritual perfection or solace or sadhana or mysticism or Hess, whatever. But at the same time, he is very keen about his society. And he is very angry about structured injustices of the society. And that is why he continues to appeal to us in 21st century, when unfortunately the business of spirituality, I am deliberately using the word business, the business of spirituality is sought to be detached from the anxieties and concerns of society. Kabir stands opposed to that. And therefore he was not only iconoclastic in his times, he is iconoclastic in our times also, because he by his very existence breaks down many of icons which we create in our mind and about ourselves and about our times.
Purushottam, you talked about yourself having just one life, and should you be born again? And I don't know.
I don't want to be, by the way. Anyway, please continue.
But you have to be good not to be born again. But we will have that separate conversation. Professors are not necessary. Anyway, Purushottam Agrawal, Kabir himself broke in a sense with the idea of Hinduism and the idea of moksha by saying that I don't believe in that necessarily, because I only understand this life, and therefore what I wear around me has to be the clean clothes that I wear around me has to be my clean soul.
Okay. Now about your first observation. Being a Hindu, I know that in order to be not to be born again, you have to be really good. If you are bad, then you are born again and again. Yeah. Okay, so I am.
We won't argue the really good bit.
I am a Hindu. I do not know whether I am good or bad. But I am Hindu, and being a Hindu, I know that in order not to be born again, you have to be good. So correct yourself on that. Secondly, about Kabir. Well, if you read Kabir closely and holistically, Kabir talks of moksha in a very different way. Kabir talks of going beyond, mukti and all that. But essentially, as you refer to that famous song, one of the most famous songs, "Jyon ki tyon darbi nahi chal rahi." So the idea is that I am given this life, everybody is given this life, everybody is given this chadar, this blanket by God, and everybody dirties. He counts the gods, the seers, the scholars, the spiritual practitioners, everybody has dirtied it. And he says about himself with supreme confidence that Das Kabir Jatan se Bharti, Jyon ki tyon dhardi nahi chal rahi. I used this life with care. I was careful. So to my mind, if at all there is something called moksha, it has to be a feeling in every moment of your life. The moment of liberation, the moment of realization cannot be detached from your everyday life. To my mind, that is the greatest insight which a poet like Kabir gives me. That you do not have any particular moment of realization that after that you become Bhagavan or Osho or whatever. Nothing like that. Every moment is potentially a moment of realization. And therefore, every moment is potentially a moment of spiritual challenge, ethical challenge. And you have to take that challenge.
Linda, before I ask you to translate a genie and ask Swaranj to perhaps perform just a paragraph, will you tell us how you came to Kabir 35 years ago when you first came to India, and then you traveled into the villages of Madhya Pradesh and you found Prahlad Tipanya, for example. You discovered him in those days. Tell us a little bit about that journey, why you stayed on, and what was your journey in the villages of Madhya Pradesh.
Well, first of all, 35 is It would be nice if it was only 35 years ago, but it was a lot more than that I first came to India and first worked on Kabir. In fact, you got your own anxiety and whatever was putting you inside started around age 16. Me too. 16 was when I figured out somehow that I needed to go to India. And you got started with Kabir around 1977. I got started about 1976, so there's some parallels there. I first came to India long ago. I started, my interests were poetry and what I thought of some kind of Indian wisdom, and it was before the hippies, it was before the Beatles, it was before the...
Before Ravi Shankar, before the Beatles.
I mean, the Beatles and Ravi Shankar were there, but not everybody was following around and saying, who's your guru? And I came interested in what I thought was Indian wisdom and poetry. These were the things that were driving me. I ended up in a Hindi-speaking region. I learned Hindi. I heard about the Bhakti poets. I said, okay, I'm going to translate the Bhakti poets. I heard there were 4 important ones. I started with Kabir in Benares. That's finished. I was going to spend the rest of my life with Kabir. Kabir appealed to me. Kabir had a very direct and plain and in-your-face kind of style, which I really liked. And yet he was also kind of a master poet. Some people have gotten mad at me for saying he's a poet because, he's a great saint, he's a guru, he's a Satguru. Excuse me, but I'll say where did this kind of genius come from? It doesn't mean anything artificial. So even while speaking very plainly and powerfully and not, to answer an earlier question, probably not literate, a weaver of Benares, he was also an incredibly powerful poet, which I've got some paper with me today because I want to read out some poetry in translation if there's time for that. Anyway, it started then, it continued, started out reading texts. After some time, I wanted to immerse myself in the music. But anyway, I won't tell that long story, but I ended up spending a long time with singers. And so, how many have ever heard Prahlad Singh Tipania sing folk? Yeah, okay. So he was a very humble village, participating in the local mandlis like everybody else. But he became famous, he became Padma Shri, and he became my guru of singing Kabir. And that was another great chapter, was Kabir as words and music married together in a powerful union.
Did you want to read a little bit of Genie, the translation, and I'll ask Swaranj to just
No,
give
I
us
don't want to read Genie. I didn't prepare that. I can do that.
Just a paragraph,
but
so
I
we get
have,
we
and then
ask
you sing
Swaranj. Yes,
Genie.
he's going to do that.
Okay, so Genie Chadaria, how many have ever heard it? It's the most famous, I would say, of all Kabir's songs, most popular, I would say. So Genie Chadaria Genie means fine or subtle. Chadaria chadar is a sheet. So Genie, I have to kind of sing it to myself to remember all the words. Genie. Yeah. So basically it tells a story of the creation of this chadar, of this fine, subtle cloth. And if he sings it, you'll hear him repeating again and again, Genie Chadaria. So what is this chadaria? He describes how it's made, and you hear that it's being made inside somebody's body. And he describes the chakras being formed, the sun and the moon, and you realize a body is being created inside of a body, it's being woven. And he says that it took 10 months. The songs say 10 months. I don't know why they say 9, don't say 9 months. And tok, even the song says, like the sound of the loom, he made that chadaria. And then I'll just tell you one interesting thing about the difference between hearing a classical musician sing this song and hearing a folk musician. It says all the people who, even great sages, rishis and munis, they couldn't keep that chadar clean throughout their lives. The folk singer Prahlad Tipania added a verse that I've never heard from a classical singer, and it was, Arjun was supposed to be very great, but that fool, even he couldn't keep that chadariya clean. And at the end, as Purushottam has said, Das Kabir, Jatan se orde, Jonkat yon,
You need a mic.
Jonkat yon.
Just a minute. सो चादर सुर नरमुनि ओढ़े ओढ़ के मैली कीनी चदरिया दास कबीर जतन से ओढ़ने ज्यों की त्यों दर दीनी चदरिया.
Somehow he wore it so carefully that it came out just as pure as when it was made.
Suraj?
जी. We have the instrument live, please. So kept it in Rag Malkons, which is a beautiful rag again.
झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया राम नाम रस भीनी राम नाम रस भीनी राम नाम रस भीनी झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया दास कबीर ने ऐसी ओढ़ी दास कबीर ने ऐसी ओढ़ी. Purushottam sir is checking my lyrics because this is from the book and you were reading something else. If you permit me, I got scared whether I should sing the.
Actually, that's why I was checking.
Okay, sir. I'm really sorry for that. ध्रुव प्रहलाद सुदामा ने ओढ़ी. And the way I composed it, my second line was supposed to go up. Now I got stuck. How do I take this line up? Thank you so much for permitting me. ध्रुव प्रहलाद सुदामा ने ओढ़ी शुकदेव ने निर्मल कीनी दास कबीर ने ऐसी ओढ़ी ज्यों की त्यों धर दीनी झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया झीनी रे झीनी झीनी रे झीनी झीनी रे झीनी चदरिया.
Purushottam ji, he took the name of Ram. So tell us a little bit about the initiation of Kabir as we hear and we know it, and both of you disagree on that a little bit. But also, in those days, we didn't have Google and we didn't have WhatsApp. And yet, this poet in Varanasi, his word was being celebrated all the way across to Malwa and Rajasthan. And 600 years later, we continue to be totally immersed in this very oral tradition.
Yeah, we did not have Google and we did not have WhatsApp. We did not even have printing press. But contrary to modern superstitions, contrary to modern superstitions, India had a vibrant book culture. India had a vibrant and very powerful tradition of preserving things through memory by oral performances, which continues till today, of which Linda has been doing a lot of work, particularly in the Malwa region. But also, particularly a sect called Dadu Panth. The sadhus belonging to Dadu Panth, and then the Sikh Adi Granth, which was finalized in 1604. They have lot of Kabir poems. Dadu Panthi sadhus, in fact it seems, Dadu Panth devoted much of its energies in actually writing down the oral tradition of various Nirguni sons, including Kabir. Not only Kabir, but including Kabir. So it's because of that. Then you have sadhus going from one place to another place. Banaras being the cultural, religious and commercial center, particularly in North India. So everyone is coming to Banaras, then people are taking back things from Banaras. That is why there is an interesting situation. Kabir was from Banaras. Banaras is Bhojpuri speaking area. But in written recensions of Kabir, all of them are from western part. Whether it is Adi Granth or it is Dadu Panth. Dadu Panth was based in Rajasthan. Therefore, in the old manuscripts of Kabir, you find Kabir preserved in western dialects or western styles of languages. For example, Punjabi accent, Rajasthani accent. For example, instead of Pani, in these manuscripts you will find Pani. No, not now. So, in that sense, Kabir, a poet from East, has actually been preserved in writing in West. And Kabir travelled throughout the country, throughout the subcontinent, through these sadhus. These sadhus and also the merchants and the householders. So let us not believe, let us not think that before the Britishers reached there, the communication was not there, or the curiosity was not there. It was there. About initiation, see, the thing is, I just want to say a couple of things here. Kabir does not mention anybody by name in his poems, except some mythological figures, and only 3 historical figures are mentioned in Kabir by himself, that is Namdev, Trilochan and Jaidev. That's all. He does not mention any historical figure whatsoever. He does not mention the name of his father, mother, his supposedly his contemporary poets. So, the scholars have been debating that Ramanand was not Kabir's guru because Kabir does not mention him. By this logic, Niru was not Kabir's father, Nima was not Kabir's mother, Rahdas was not Kabir's contemporary because Kabir does not mention any one of them. That is number 1. Number 2, Ramanand, in fact, Kabir forced Ramanand to initiate him. The Kabir Ramanand story, to my mind, as a teacher, as a professor all my life, Kabir Ramanand story is most important because it tells us that it's not only the teachers who teach the students, it is the students also who teach the teachers. So it is Kabir who in that story, I don't want to go into that, one can read it any book. If you go to that story, in the story, it is Kabir who makes Ramanand realize the futility of his prejudices. Ramanand was an orthodox Brahmin, supposedly, he did not want to see any Muslim like that. There was no question of initiating a Muslim. Kabir just lie down on the stairs, Ramanand's foot touched his body and Ramanand out of, Ram, ye kya ho gaya? And Kabir said that this is my mantra. And started declaring himself to be Ramanand's disciple. So Ramanand was very angry and upset. He called Kabir and asked him that how you are saying that you are my disciple, I never initiated you. So according to Anant Das, the hagiographer or biographer of Kabir, Kabir tells Ramanand that you gave me Ram mantra and you actually gave that mantra to yourself, and that was my initiation. And Ramanand realized that it does not matter whether he is a weaver or he is a Muslim or he is untouchable or whatever, and came out of his self-imposed curtain, self-imposed restriction. So this story is a story where a teacher is being taught by the student. And every sincere teacher knows this. I'm very happy to say that a couple of my students are sitting here and they have young people, young men and boys or girls or whatever. You have taught me a lot and thank you very much. I express my thanks publicly to you. So this is the story. And about authenticity, as I told you, I mean, it is said that it's a Brahminical invention, Brahminical. I mean, yes, Brahmins were very clever in India, of course, but all other peoples were not that stupid. And they went on believing in a Brahminical invention till 20th century. The other argument is that this story is not mentioned anywhere except in Vaishnava sources. The fact of the matter is that a story is mentioned in Sufi Tajkiraj. In my latest edition of Kabir Granthavali, in fact, I have given detailed quotation. And I think it is for the first time that a scholar has chanced upon that particular reference. It is by Dara Sweko in Hasnate Arfin, where he describes Kabir as Ramanand's disciple categorically. That Kabir is a great thinker, Kabir is a Peshwa in his own right, but he is also a Paro of Ramanand Mundia. This is Dara Sweko, who was not a Brahmin by any chance. So to my mind, that's a very long story. I have written very lot in detail about it. How this story came to be doubted, how there was a kind of Sanskritization of Ramanand. In fact, Sanskritization, incidentally, Sanjay, not a single Sanskrit source from the contemporary times even mentioned Ramanand. While in vernacular sources he is constantly mentioned with a lot of respect, and he is mentioned in Sufi Tajkiraj. And he is mentioned with respect. His dialogue with Sufis are mentioned, dialogue of Kabir with Sufis are mentioned. So Ramanand is a presence not in Sanskrit sources, but in vernacular sources and in Persian sources, that is Tajkira. And still he is a Brahmin, because the man unfortunately was born a Brahmin. He transcended his Brahminism. He was a Brahmin, but not a Brahminvadi. So this story is meaningful in any way, and I don't call it a story. To my mind, it's simply a historical fact, unless and until some real proof contradicting the evidences like Dara Sweko, Mubasa, and Sufi Tajkiraj come to light.
Linda, Purushottam Agrawal talks about Kabir and of course his poetry. You have been translating his poetry for a long time and from different sources. 40 or 60 or 100 years after Kabir passes away, we see the first collection, initially in the Bijak and then in the Guru, initially in the, later, in the Granth Sahib, which is 114 initially, and then a few were taken away because he was seen to be crude, or some of his poetry was seen to be problematic, and so they were taken out of the Guru Granth Sahib and the Ulti Bansi that we now talk about. So will you tell us a little bit about what you found in his poetry? Why was it seen to be crude, but it had so much of power? And if you could translate and read a few of them as an example.
That example you picked up from my book about some poems were eliminated from the earlier sort of draft of the Guru Granth Sahib. Say 3 poems. I wouldn't really dwell on that too much. That 3 poems were eliminated, and not because they were crude, for some other reason, but basically the point we should take is that there's a tremendous vibrancy and a fluidity in this Kabir tradition. So that when Swaranj sings Jini Chadariya, he has a little different word at the end than the word that he read out. And of course, I can give you another slightly different version. And this is not somebody is wrong. This shows you that the thing is alive, the tradition is alive and has never ceased to be alive. So I wouldn't dwell on, and also one famous, infamous scholar of Hindi literature pronounced that Kabir is crude. Let's not even talk about him. I think I told Sanjoy that I would like to read out some translations of the poetry, So I've got something written down here. We're in the UK, there's a lot of people here who understand Hindi, but I think a fair amount who don't. So I had a few things I wanted to say in the Voices of Faith event. So I'm going to you're giving me a chance to read out some of these. So yesterday in the opening session, we heard that religion is about wisdom and compassion and love. We hope this is true. We can find evidence for it, for sure. But we also know, and we should not be afraid to mention, that religion has often been a vehicle of delusion and oppression and hatred. Kabir understood this, and he showed us both sides of religion, and he went beyond religion. Purushottam has written powerfully about how Kabir rejected organized religion and fiercely criticized religious identities, religious hypocrisies, religious cruelties. So the songs that we've heard have been beautiful and moving, but it's not just music, it's this wedding, this intimate wedding of words and music. The world is not going to remember 500 years from now what generalizations we made about love and compassion and religion here at the Barbican Center, but the world will remember and be inspired by Kabir because of those amazing words that rose up from his own profound experience and heart and intelligence. So I'm going to share with you, I promised that it won't be any more than 10 minutes, and you can stop me if I go on too long.
Maybe 2 poems and then I'll come back.
Yeah. First, a taste of what Kabir had to say about religion and delusion. Repeating Ram or Rahim with Hindu or Muslim beads, you lost your mind. Kabir says, listen, you idiots, the real speaker isn't Hindu, isn't Turk. But he didn't just debunk Ram and Rahim. He also said things like this, and this is something that you can hear sung now, on the internet, yeah. But it was sung also 400 or 500 years ago, we know from the old manuscripts. Our Ram, Rahim, you've probably heard this. Hamare Ram, Rahim, Kareem, Keshav. Our Ram, Rahim, Kareem, Keshav, our Allah, Ram. One truth, the same, Bismillah, Vishvambar, one, no other. Turks and Hindus, mosques and temples, Khuda Ram is in both. So he had a lot to say about pilgrimage. He said that people go on pilgrimage and they don't lose any of their sins. They actually pile up more sins when they jump into the holy river. Then what about yogis? Are they the real deal? Is it yoga the thing? Here's Kabir on that. What's the point of going naked or wearing a tiger skin if you can't recognize Ram within, Antara Ram? If you attain yoga by roaming naked, then deer in the jungle are liberated. If you get yogic power by shaving your head, turn the page. If you get yogic power by shaving your head, won't sheep go straight to heaven? If holding your semen in is your game, brother, get castrated to reach the supreme state. He was sharp. He didn't hold back. And then another poem, he says, I look for someone to free me, but they're all tied up in traps. Yogis say yoga's nice, terrific. There's nothing like it. The ones who pull out their hair or shave their heads or pile up dreadlocks or vow to stay silent, they all say, hey, we got power. He's got a sharp eye for people who are after power. But this no is accompanied by a yes that goes deeper. Hindu kahun to hu nahi, Musliman bhi nahi, gaibi dono deenon mein, khelu dono mahi. I'm not a Hindu. If you say Hindu, I'm not that. Muslim, not that either. Both faiths hold hidden truth. I play in both. Kabir does speak about love, but what he means by it and what it is something really deep to think about. Now, I don't know if you're going to let me go on. Okay. So this is a Doha Saki that I heard many traveling around India with Prahlad Tipania. Here's one that I heard from him. Jaghat prema nasanchare vaghat Jana Smasana. Jesse Kala Loharaki, sans late bina prana, which means, know this, a body without love is like a cremation ground, like a blacksmith's bellows. It puffs without the breath of life. And here's another one you might have heard. Jab mein tha tab hari nahi, ab hari hai main nahi. Prem gali ati sankari, tame do na samai. When I existed, God did not. Now God exists, I don't. The lane of love is very narrow. Two won't fit. The first song that Swaran sung used evocative poetic language. Uronakaga kare, fly away, O black crow, to find the beloved and bring the message of love to him. But he also sang about death, about the transitory nature of our flesh and bones, which is a favorite subject of Kabir. Kabir is going to remind you about death and of how your body is going to burn and disintegrate and decay, and whether you like it or not. And yet somehow in this poetry, we somehow like it. I could say more about it, but anyway, Rana Nahi Des Pirana Hai, such a beautiful song. And I'll just read in English a few of the verses. Of course, the refrain is Rana Nahi Des Pirana Hai. This is not a place to stay. It's not a place you can stay. It's an alien, it's a barren land. And then I have, in an English translation, this world, ye sansar, it's a bundle of paper. A few drops fall, it melts away. This world is a field of thorns where you get tangled up and die. This world is shrubs and sticks, a touch of fire, it burns up. What do death and impermanence have to do with love? I won't try to answer that now, so I would like to just end with one poem of Kabir, one of many poems that go beyond this kind of small-mindedness that he criticizes, this small identification with I'm this religion or that religion, with achievement, achieving something, and he speaks of some experience of endless spaciousness and joy. And I would like to just read out one of those poems and then this time he uses a number of names of God, Ram and Hari and so on. Here he uses Niranjan, which is exactly no marks. This is the experience beyond boundaries and form. Now I've recognized markless Niranjan, effortless. Reflecting on the Guru's path of wisdom, suddenly I went beyond, drowned, drenched in the great flow. The lotus blooms, the endless sound thunders. This is the nod that musicians live, this endless sound. The endless sound thunders and the mind finds joy. I see light in everything, like moon and water, this boundless place, this luminous beauty is Kabir's God, a flute untouched by any hand, plays sweet melody, a word beyond compare. I listen.
Thank you. Purushottam, could you, as we conclude, can you give us a sort of Sanjoy K, the idea of Nirgun? That's one. And two, Linda talked about him addressing Ram, and Kabir angered everybody. He had his own mother go as part of a delegation to the emperor and say, you know, he's a baddie and my son's got distracted. So tell us, what is it that caused this kind of anger from both sides and end with the idea of Nirgun?
Well, because he did not believe in the so-called Hindu-Muslim unity. Because the Hindu-Muslim unity these days is based upon the premise that Hindus should not criticize Muslim nonsenses and Muslims should not criticize his Hindu nonsenses. And nobody should accept that there is something nonsense in his religious studies. Kabir refused to believe this. He knew that all religions have great things and all religions have nonsense inbuilt. So this has to be criticized left and right and center. And that is why he managed to anger everybody, Hindus, Muslims, Nath-Panthis, even his mother, who was a devout Muslim, of course, and was very angry with her son, who went around in company with all these funny characters called Vaishnavas. This is the word from her mother, as remembered by Kabir, by the way.
He told his mother that he was quitting the loom, and he only was going to weave the name of Ram and write the name. And she said, "How are you going to earn a living?" Typical mother.
But since we are coming to the close of this lesson, I would like to read. In the introduction to this book, I have quoted Joseph Brodsky, the Nobel laureate, and his poem goes like this: I sit in the dark, and it would be hard to figure out which is worse, the dark inside or the darkness out. I think poets like Kabir, and incidentally, I believe Kabir is unique, but neither the first nor the last. He is part of a very, very vibrant and living tradition which the vernaculars of South Asia present before us. And we simply treat them as second-class citizens of the world of letters. Anyway, that's a different issue. So Kabir is important here because he tells us, he helps us to recognize that the most important is to realize the bond, the vicious connection between the darkness inside and the dark outside. So it cannot be that you handle on the dark outside and dark inside. You have to handle, if at all, both together. So here is the answer to the query or to the anxiety of Joseph Brodsky: which is worse, the dark inside or the darkness out? Both are worse and both are to be handled simultaneously. Coming to last point, which this is something which I definitely want to bring to your notice, and then I think we are already coming to the close. See, Allah and Ram, they have been used as war cries in his time as well as today. These are war cries. Allahu Ram, Allahu Akbar, Jai Shri Ram. They are no more faith evocations. They are war cries. And it was so in Kabir's times also. And Kabir had the guts, Kabir had the moral courage and the spiritual strength to describe himself as the child of Allah and Ram both. And he used these words together precisely. This is a most moving poem. Allah Ram jiun tere taim, bande upar meher kar mere sain. O my Allah, O my Ram, I live due to you, please have mercy on me. There's a long song, I don't want to read it out, but it ends, and this is something very important. Jeti aurat marda kahiye sab mein roop tumhara. All the men, all the women, I see you in every one of them. So Kabir's God is not some angry old man sitting on the 7th or 9th cloud. He is there in you, in me, in him, in her, in everybody. Jeti aurat marda kahiye sab mein roop tihara. Kabir pangla alhe Ram ka hare gur peer hamara. Pangla is child, Pangla is baby. So Kabir is the baby of Allah and Ram both, and everywhere he can see his Guru, his Hari, in everyone. That I think is the way to come out of the darkness out and dark inside. Thank you.
Linda, one of the more fascinating things about Kabir is that he's always, in many ways this festival sort of looks at that. He reaches out straight to people. Kabir says, Suno re sadho, as opposed to, tell us that sense of what is the communication that he was doing and why is that continued to be so strong in all his poetry and song?
So when he says Suno bhai sadhu, he doesn't just mean sadhus walking around in yellow cloths. He addresses us, you, all the time. Suno, Suno. He addresses the listener much more than he addresses God. So he also says Sunore Murk a lot. Listen, you fool. He addresses us as a fool, he addresses us as a saint. I don't call Sant saint. Sant is from Sant, truth, so I call Sant the truth seeker. He addresses us as a sincere truth seeker, but he also addresses us as a fool. I forget the question, but this quality in Kabir's voice, where he's speaking all the time to the listener, or in our time to the reader, is quite unique to him. I don't know, does anybody else do that besides Kabir? Suno, listen. It gives him a very special quality of intimate communication with us. And he also makes us sit up straight and say, oh, excuse me, maybe I better have an answer to this question.
Purushottam, to close with, could you give us the parable of Kabir's passing and the philosophy behind what happened?
Well, the story is well known. His disciples started fighting amongst themselves. Hindus were claiming that maybe even if he was born a Muslim, he lived all his life as a Hindu, so he must be cremated. The Muslims claimed that whatever the way he lived, but after all he was born to a Muslim family, so he must be buried. And Kabir realized that fools are fools, no matter how you address them and in whatever way you address them. So he told them to wait for a while and went inside his room. And after a while, as the story goes, they entered and they found a heap of flowers, and the message was clear. So half the flower was burned and half the flowers were buried. Many people see this, including myself, till some years ago. I saw this legend as a symbol of Kabir's failure, that even his followers could not actually understand. But now I realize that this was Kabir's ploy, as the legends go, to actually foreclose the possibility of another religion taking place. And I think this was not a failure, this was his farsightedness. Because a dead body cannot be disposed of like this. It has to be disposed of in certain definite way. And any way of disposing a dead body of someone like Kabir, such a respected and revered figure, was bound to create another religious tradition. And Kabir was not interested in creating another religion. He was fed up with all the religion present. I think he would have told his God that thank you very much, we have had enough of religions, let us now think beyond religion. So I think, to my mind, this legend actually signifies Kabir's attempt to foreclose the possibility of his followers starting another religion. That's a different matter, that after 100 years of Kabir, his followers did exactly that. That's a different matter. Nobody can control the followers. But to close, in fact, Linda mentioned something very important here. Without meaning any disrespect to music tradition or to all kind of classical or folk traditions of performance, Kabir lives not because of music. Kabir lives because of his words. And incidentally, it seems that he knew this. In the oldest dated manuscript of Kabir, which is called Fatehpur manuscript, 1581, we find a very moving and very significant line. And that is, Chinmay bitse yeh sarira, tehi karan pad rache Kabira. Since this body is going to finish like that, and therefore I composed poem. He knew that the words survive, the poetry survives, and that is why Kabir survives till today, not merely because of his poems are composed to beautiful music, not because a panth has been established in his name, not because scholars like yours truly and Linda Hess are making something out of his poetry, but simply because he composed first-rate poetry. And he knew this, and he could say with confidence, Chinmay bitse yeh sarira, tehi karan pad rache Kabira.
How many of you have been to Varanasi? So as many of you know today, Varanasi is seen to be a city of Shiva. Varanasi used to be a Vaishnav city, as much of India was, but I discovered Swarajji through a particular piece of poetry that he recited in an ode to Shiva, and I'm going to ask him to close with that and close the session.
As Purushottam sir said about the poetry and lines, I believe in it because I believe that I was born to write more than singing and composing. So this singing part, it just happened with me because I'm born in such a legacy. Another thing which I would love to add in आपने जो बात कही है, and I think it'll be best
Swaraj,
spoken
they're
in
going to
Hindi.
shout at us.
जी?
They're going to shout at us.
अच्छा
We have
ठीक
to
है,
run.
okay, ठीक है, okay. So let me quickly. So I'll just take one point. जी. So this poetry is going to take only 1 minute and 40 seconds. I'll और जल्दी. It's on Aghori, the neutral followers of Shiva. So here it goes. It's very percussive. Enjoy it. हाथ कपाल गले मुंड की माल अरु भस्म रमाए त्रिपुंड लगाए नाचित डमरू के ताल बवंडर छलकत मदिरा काट कमंडल घोर अघोरी नर कपाल धरि त्रिशूल गोरी भांग भंग चढ़ी लाल लाट तुरे नैन त्रिलोचन नंगन दीह करताप विमोचन तिरक तिरक तिरकत मलंग भय शिव शरीर शिव शिव शिवंग भय ओम नमो महाकाल पुकारा गरज गरज बदरा मृदंग के तरंग में प्रसंग में हो विभूत तुम प्रसन्न भय डिम डिम टिकाक डमरू की वाक बाजत विपाक रखियो है थाप घुंघरू झनाट झनाट झन झन तांडव की नाच 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 ब्रह्म बम बम काशी विश्वनाथ ब्रह्म बम बम जय हो महाकाल हे भक्त हो कि तुम मुक्त सिद्धि से युक्त भक्त की तरंग में मलंग हो प्रचंड हे शिवान दुविधा कृपालु तुम दूर करो कविता कृपालु तुम पूर्ण करो तुम निदान उचान महान प्रबल मैं कृतार्थ पार्थ हूं बहुत विचल पर तुम अविचल हो श्रृंगी विराजे भस्म बले तुम भभूत साजे कृतान करे जब भुजा को खोले कृतान बिजुरिया आकाश बोले झरी झरत झरी झरत झरी 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 कहत तुमरी ही बखान करे ब्रह्मांड भी बोले कहत कविजन जन के भंजन की जय हो जय जय हो जय हो शमशान के राजा भय मृत्यु जन्म का त्यागे तुम ऐसे ध्यान को साधा भूत पिशाच भी थर थर कांपे तब कब हूं वो समक्ष न आवे जब तुम मन से श्राप दिए हो शिव काली का जाप किए हो लाल लहू से खेरत होरी चीलम गांजा धूम मचोरी वर्ष वर्ष जब जाप किए हो तब कहलाए तुम नाम अघोरी तब कहलाए तुम नाम अघोरी तब कहलाए तुम नाम अघोरी धा